Hello, Global Theater. My name is Jerry Fielka. Today is January 12th, 2022. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with Rob Grant and his amazing podcast. I'm probably wrong about everything. Thank you so much, Rob. We'll see you in the metaverse or wherever that place is.
You got it. Many twos today. Many twos
Yeah,
to you.
many twos. That's it. And it is real honor and pleasure to be here with Robbie Herbst. How do you pronounce your last name, Robbie?
Herbst.
Herbst, I did it.
Yep,
You know,
you've got it pretty close.
I interviewed your brother once. Is Mark older or younger?
We're twins.
You're twins.
Yep,
Amazing. Identical twins?
identical.
Oh my God. And so we'll just jump right into it. What's the best thing for a human being?
Being surrounded by people who love and care for them.
That's nice. What's your favorite form of information? How it comes into you?
When shared with other people, by other people.
Yeah, when shared with or by. Yeah, with or by. You know Norman Klein?
Yeah.
Yeah, I said, what's your favorite form of information? He said, honest. He used an adjective instead of a noun or a verb. So yours is sort of verb oriented. You're saying your favorite form of information is when it is being shared.
Yeah.
But what is the it? What's the form of the information? It doesn't matter, or
No, it doesn't matter.
why do you think humans collect or gather information?
To make sense of the world.
You think this need or want is more innate or more invented?
Innate.
Do thoughts create emotions?
Yes.
Is thinking more innate or more invented?
Innate.
Fill in the blank. I don't know what I think until I.
Taste it.
Whoa, I've never had that answer. Taste it. Is that metaphorical tasting or just literally tasting it in your mouth?
Tasting in your body.
Oh, your whole body
Yeah.
tastes. Well, explain how do you taste something in your whole body? Because people might go tasting is more of a food sensation or something like that. How would you give me an example of how something you would taste in your whole body?
Mm, you learn something, you process it in your mind, and then you feel it, and you come to know its flavors as they rest in your whole body.
Right, but still it seems flavors is metaphorical.
I don't know.
I like that. Yeah, no, flavors could be. Can humans think without language?
Yes.
Chomsky says that a language is not just words. It's culture, tradition, unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is. Robbie, what do you do when language doesn't work, when it breaks down?
You invent a new language.
This is fun. Okay, you get it. These are two questions from Alan Turing, 1950. Is thinking a function of the soul?
I don't know.
Can machines think?
No.
Do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
Happiness.
Does the brain more detect consciousness or create it? Like, is consciousness there bubbling away and we're detecting it, or are we actually creating it?
Detect.
What's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
Doesn't matter.
I like that. Audre Lorde, the poet, says you can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools. Yvonne Rainer responded, you can if you expose the tools. What new tool do you suggest?
I would question the whole premise of the question.
That's good. Rebecca Solnit said, just because someone asks you a question doesn't mean you have to answer it. But I'd say these cute quotes before some of these questions, you don't have to put it in the context of the quotes. All the questions you put in the context you want. So what new tool excites you? Would you go with that question?
You want me to answer that?
Yeah, if you want.
No, I would. That doesn't excite me.
And so is there any tool that you find
The imagination,
imagination good? What new toy do you suggest?
something that allows you to bounce,
Bounce. What do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
dying,
Can you forget to die?
probably,
Why are most artists liberal?
because they spend a lot of time feeling.
Ah, are humans more feeling beings or more thinking beings?
Is there that much of a difference?
Yeah, you're answering a question with the question. You win. That's great. Yeah, the either or questions I give aren't necessarily. I'm aware, and you are, that the two choices I give you are the two choices you have to
I'm always
answer.
looking for a third way. That's
Yeah,
my job.
that's what I'm saying. I welcome that, and I also welcome the rewording or the questions and the challenging of question. Um, this woman, I think who did who connected us? I
Three.
forgot. Dorit. You know what she said? This amazing thing. I said, "Is something more this or more that?" She goes, "The word more doesn't function in your question." And I love that because, the more questions are stupid, but it's essentially just, again, just these jumping off points. So McLuhan learned from Ezra Pound that artists are the antenna of the race. They're broadcasting and detecting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions. So, like you bring up bouncing ball, you'd bounce on a ball. We don't know what bouncing balls have done to us totally. We've just embraced them and say, hey, they're cool. We can exercise. But there's hidden psychic effects of how it's changed our behavior. So McLuhan's main thing learning from Pound was, and I ask you this question, Robbie, why do people ignore the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, even though they're being broadcast by the artist?
Because we're caught in the stream of consciousness and not stepping back from it to
What,
analyze it.
what do you suss out what you mean by we're caught in the stream of
Because
consciousness?
experience is a powerful thing, and thinking about the nature of experience is a lot is is what it is. And I mean, with McLuhan, he's realizing that invention, that the tool of the invention is the revolution, not the experience of the revolution. So he's saying you got to look at the thing that's creating the experience, not just the experience yourself. So you got to go to the tool, and that requires a step of abstraction to look beyond just the moment.
You're talking form and content?
Yeah, probably.
Because you said experience, and it seems you substitute that word for stream of consciousness. Do I understand that correctly, what you were saying?
Probably.
So that's interesting. And how did you consume what McLuhan was saying? By reading his books or listening to him talk, or
Well,
how?
I've kind of always known McLuhan, and then I spent a lot of time thinking about him.
Right. But
Not
you've always known him by reading how many out of his 22 books?
three.
3? Do you
Yeah,
know which titles?
no.
That's all right.
Of course, the medium is a massage. Kind of scanned the Electric Bride, and then some, and then of course the media is the massage, and then some critiques and conversations on McLuhan, and then kind of the whole like cybernetic field that he, there's such a fans and indebted to him.
So you think he's a fraud, semi-fraud, or not a fraud?
He's a great thinker, an important
Oh,
thinker of our media age.
dang, that's good. Okay, so you anticipate do you have ESP?
No,
No?
no,
You anticipated the next question beautifully. Everybody experiences far more than they understand. Yet it is experience rather than understanding that influences behavior. That's Marshall. Any comments? Can you suss that out? What do you think he meant by that?
can you repeat it again?
Yes, I'd love to. Everybody experiences far more than they understand. Yet it is experience rather than understanding that influences behavior.
Yeah,
But what does it mean to you?
it means that experience dictates human behavior, but McLuhan and other people want to key into what causes the experience. There's a impetus, a signal, a media, and then there's the reaction to the media, but we don't experience the media as the experience. We experience th- the experience of the media as the media.
Yeah.
And so we're in the second level of abstraction from the original language itself, and in the realm of consciousness and how we perceive it in our mind, as opposed to being one with the media and one with the actual tool itself. So there's these levels of abstraction that goes on in the interpretive mind, both of the culture and of the individual.
Beautiful, because that sounds like Yeats's poem. You can't tell the dance from the dancer.
Mm,
So he also, Marshall also said, understanding, because this is the key to that last quote we discussed, was he's saying understanding shapes our behavior more than experience, or it should, but we let experience shape our behavior
yeah.
when we should try to understand. But then Marshall said understanding is not having a point of view. What do you think of that? What does that mean?
Well, I mean, I mean, the simple answer is understanding is a kind of concept of I don't know, maybe of academic objectivity, of just
Yeah.
knowing what the tool is, and perhaps this questionable thing about the tool is not uh it's neither good nor evil. It just is a tool. It just is. And kind of this pure objectivity that in techno determinism is perhaps the most suspect, and also one of the most interesting mechanisms there.
I like that. Technological determinism. I love that. That's funny. I like that term. Yeah, but in Wikipedia they call Marshall, he was a light technological determinist. He was a Menippean satirist who engaged in some technological determinism. That's why I find some of your stuff really close. In fact, you have this line, behavior architecture. Is that
Yeah,
your, what
yeah.
does that mean? What does that mean?
uh I guess it's this is kind of McLuhanist, but that the built environment determines, or the social environment determines, the way that people behave, and as individuals we can manipulate those things.
You know what Winston Churchill said, we shape our buildings, then they shape us. And Marshall just, like all these cute quotes, he just said, I'll reword it and reinvent it. He says, we shape our tools, then they shape us. So is that sort of what behavior architecture is? We shape our buildings, then they shape us?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do artists have a moral obligation?
Moral obligation.
Good answer. Um, are you more afraid of old ideas or more afraid of new ideas?
I'm not afraid of ideas.
Beautiful. Can you conjure up your earliest memory ever or one of them?
Yeah.
What is it?
I think maybe I was in the womb or around it, and I had a twin brother who was always sticking his fist in my face.
That literally, you felt that,
I
yeah.
don't know. I have a sense memory of that. I
Do
don't
you
know if
have
it was maybe in the crib. Who knows?
Yeah. Is memory more a curse or more a blessing?
Ah, it is. I don't know.
Yeah. Can you tell me specific role no, excuse me, an early role model, someone who had an impact on you early in your life, within your immediate family and then outside your immediate family, and what specific just briefly, what specific was that impact?
My father, who was an artist, and
What'd you get from your dad?
the idea that the individual is created, and and this this fencer at a park who was role playing as like a Shakespearean.
And you saw him as a kid and what did you get from him? What did
I
it
was like, wow, that would be a fun thing to do
and
or a
then
fun thing to be.
you mean you eventually became an actor or a fencer, or you just we were inspired by him role playing?
We went to this as a kid. We went to this 1970s, 80s federally funded art park in upstate New York, a place called Art Park. And it was an environment with all these big modernist sculptures. And I really dug it. And there, along with it, were like these craft activities. And there was this guy who was a fencer there amongst all like the Desuveros. And I was like, oh, yeah, this is art.
Wow. What city was it?
I think it was outside of Syracuse or Buffalo or
Yes.
Rochester.
Yeah. And so did you ever go to Bread and Puppets?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
never to see the big pageant.
Yeah. So, but let's go back to your dad for a second. The idea that the individual is created, meaning is created by themselves or created by something else? I
Well, you know, I'm always well, yeah, to answer your question, is that the individual consciously creates themselves.
That
And
the
that,
individual creates themselves.
yeah,
But that's
consciously
interesting
as an act.
as an act.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's amazing with you. How do you suss that out with you having an identical
Well, that's
twin?
exactly the question for me always. Is like who, having a twin brother is never being an individual. It's always being uh, a, a collective. And the concept of individuality was always a very difficult concept for me to get with um, as a kid. And I didn't really have to deal with until I was 18 and I left my brother. So having a fixed understanding of that I was the sole person was something that, didn't was not natural for me as the way it is for most other people who aren't twins.
But you said but did you both consciously say we're gonna not live together anymore, or were you more
We
like
just went off to college
you just went off
separately.
to college?
Yeah,
Yeah.
separately.
But are you guys still best friends or connected?
We come in and out of being good friends, yeah.
Wow. Okay, so thank you. Did your parents raise you a particular religion?
Yes.
Which religion?
Atheistic Jews.
Did you ever check out?
Check out a what?
Like, are you still an atheistic Jew, a
Well, I think
practicing
I was always proud of not being a dogmatic Jew, and at certain points, um, and kind of identifying as a bohemian Jew. But at certain points, I tried to say, what is it to be a Jew? Um, and have spent time with other belief systems because being an atheistic Jew means you could embrace all religions. And our
Yeah,
our temple was actually in a Unitarian church for years, so that probably
I
encouraged.
got you. Do you pray?
Uh, I don't, not really sure.
That's good. Yeah, that is a great question. I'm not sure if I pray. If God exists, what would you like God to say to you after you die?
All right. That's something I never, my conception of God doesn't contain that.
Right. No, the artist, woman you would love her, Flash Rosenberg. I interviewed her yesterday. I says, if God exists, what do you want him to say to you after you die? She says, "You're not really dead." Isn't
I
that a
like
great
it.
answer?
Oh, I
That is
love it.
because you know what 80% of people say? They go,
What?
"You've done a good job."
Oh, wow.
And I mean that's a legitimate answer, but it's like or they go, "Welcome." Do evil people exist, or does evil use people as a vehicle?
Ooh, I like this. Yeah, evil people exist.
How do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? I'm going to set this up with a few modern thinkers' thoughts. Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from the mob and the samurais. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. JFK said, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. Fellini says, I need an enemy. It's a lot of thoughts. The basic question is, Robbie, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how would you respond to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
I kind of reject like the feel goodism of Watts, but I also think there's a lot of logic there.
Yeah. So how would you advise someone to deal with an
I like
enemy?
the Coppola quote. I
The
mean, I think you
Coppola,
want to understand your enemies and keep them close.
yeah. Well, American Indians, indigenous say your enemy's your best teacher.
Yeah,
Yeah,
pretty much.
yeah. James Joyce ran a movie theater in Dublin over 100 years ago. He basically checked out. He said, this is stupid. Why should I go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when I can go outside and see a real tree? Years later, Faulkner said sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism. Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to the theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?
It's a real good question. Because we're trapped in cities and we're trapped in vehicles that are antithetical to living.
Hello.
I
You
mean,
know,
there's also the ritual of theater as well, where the presentation of life gives the flow of life lots of meaning, and consequently, we come to it enriches the quality of our life as well, and our understanding of our experience.
is theater empathetic?
Even if it is the cruelest theater, yes,
Yeah.
we learn from our enemies.
So what first, I mean, basically, can I say you're a writer, an artist, and a publisher of unfamiliar ideas? That's your sort of three kind of things
Yeah,
you're
we could say that.
okay. Let's go through them. What first attracted you to being a writer? Like, Did your parents raise you reading and you were told to read, or you read it on your own? And then at some point, I'm looking for the tipping points when you went, oh, I
Yeah.
can write. And like write literally to make a living. Like this means telling me a little what you studied in high school or college. And then same thing. At what point did you say, well, I'm going to be an artist and this is my medium, and then I'm going to be a publisher and this is my, yeah.
Yeah.
So just walk us through those three.
So we have to start with being an artist. I think I was always interested in art, but I was never particularly interested in object making. And
Yeah.
I was always interested in people who stood outside of society, and that always seemed to be artists, most endearingly. Um, my parents were identified as pseudo beatniks and folkies. So the general tenor was to be creative, and I said we were atheistic Jews, and I think there was a religion of Pete Seeger around the house, and Pete Seeger was a moral titan in some ways, but he was also a personality, and that personality seemed to be embodied more in the concept of being an artist. And the form of the performance of folk concerts, like I was always interested in the experience of the folk concert, let's just say. And being a little kid, one of the most difficult things in many ways for me was being at folk concerts, because there was all this kind of like non-ordinary behavior that would go on in the crowd, like smoking and drinking and being naked and fucking in the woods. And I didn't know how to process that, and it seemed interesting, and it was one of the only things that I ever experienced where, like, it was okay that it wasn't right, and it didn't make sense, and I should just be okay with it. And my father was a, trained by, like Hans Hofmann, like real, like, Clement Greenberg aesthetics, and so his paintings were always, like, abstract expressionism, and you'd ask him what they were, and he'd tell you, "I can't tell you. If you don't know, go away." So I think the pure experience, let's just say, of going to folk concerts seemed like really powerful, and it was not object based. And like my father's denial of language was always non-object based, even though it was related to object. And the performance that he did of discussing the work and people questioning it always seemed to be the most powerful. So I was always attracted to this idea of the artist as being someone who causes uncomfortable situations and questions. And I kind of stumbled into being a writer because I never really was much of a disciplinarian in both senses of the words. And I always thought, I think when I was in college, I spent a lot of time reading, more than being in classes, and studying about like the 60s neo avant-garde and the 60s counterculture and the crossover space between there. I was kind of fascinated by that zone, and was really more into the ideas and the objects, even though the objects were fascinating. And I remember, I think it was encountering Barnett Newman and reading about his time as a writer. And it's like, oh, that's a thing. You could like not have an image making career and just like write for a while. And then, I think one of the things that's not really talked about is growing up in the 90s. So much of what was relevant and powerful culture where it was in zines, which was a space between art and writing and publishing. So for me, I did not aim to start a zine. Aimed to participate in movements and culture. And so I got involved with media production and writing, and actually pirate radio to begin with, as media making, as a way to communicate and share ideas, whether they were my ideas or ideas that were going on within society. And kind of in that mess between, there's no discipline, there's no boundaries, and there's just this object of this zine or this publication or this communication, that's where the art is. And art is really all art is basically a form of media, and whether it's a hot or cold or a slow or fast, it just depends on the type of conversation you want to have.
That was beautiful. Yeah, and it's like both Marshall and Andy Warhol said, art is anything you can get away with.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah, and I think I always reading Emmett Grogan's Ring Alivio,
there you
and
go.
while I've never lived up to his infamy, the idea of being a life actor, is always something, as I mentioned before, was really important to me. And seeing what you could get away with and trying to, yes.
It's amazing. Yeah, because I was going to ask you just maybe one or two other book authors or genres you were growing up reading.
Comic books,
Yeah.
of
Mad
course.
Mag Mad
Oh,
Magazine?
of course.
Of
Although
course,
I also, yes, I love Mad, and I also liked Cracked, and I loved
I was
the what?
I was waiting to hear that.
Yeah, and then I was an avid comic book collector, and I had very particular tastes, always, and yeah,
And then the same with the like it sounds like you agitprop performance artist. Like,
yeah.
can you drop a couple names of people you saw or read about and went, that's, were there any of those people?
I mean, I spent time working with a very short period of time working with the San Francisco Mime Troupe and with a similar political theater troupe in Minneapolis called In the Heart of the Beast.
Yeah.
Um, and those experiences were really important to me. I spent a period of time in the 90s kind of trying to explore existent 60s political theater and counterculture, as much as I could locate it in places where the the aesthetics and the politics were roughly still intact. I also spent time living with Philip Berrigan.
Did you really?
Yes.
Wow.
Well, he was in prison at the time, um, but living in that community. Um, so yeah,
That's beautiful.
that form of agitprop meant a lot to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. Because I was fishing for more like Vito Acconci and those guys.
Yeah.
No?
No.
No, really.
No.
How about Augusto Pola, The Theater of the Oppressed?
Yeah, I've read Boal. Um, I worked for Chris Burden for a while.
Oh, I see. That's cool. Yeah, you worked for Chris.
Yeah.
That helps. Yeah. Yeah, that documentary on Chris Burden is really good. You see that?
No, I haven't.
Oh,
I
it's good.
totally
Yeah,
forgot
because
about it. Thanks for reminding me.
yeah, because normal people are like, "What the fuck?" You shot, And anyways, it really helps to just understand that he was a great artist.
Yeah. Yeah, my art education wasn't standard.
Yeah.
I never really spent time with Vito Acconci. I only found
Yeah.
out. Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah, because it's also like the two people they claim invented performance art because of the term
Yeah.
was Alan Caprow and Jack Smith.
Yeah.
And that's another discussion maybe. But
I mean, Adrian Piper always floats my
yeah,
boat.
there you go. Yeah. So a screenwriting teacher told me great art is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Kubrick says the opposite. Great art is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker. What role does intention play in your creative process?
Wait, what role does what?
Intention.
Oh, who the fuck knows? I don't know. In my
Motive.
creative process?
Yeah, in your creative process, what
Oh,
role?
it's the drive. It's the drive.
It's the
Like,
drive.
intention, like, I really need to figure out my intention, always. Like, I have to have that as the central core.
Yeah. And then Duchamp said there's no art without an audience. How much are you thinking of your audience while you're making your art?
Constantly.
Are you really?
Oh,
Tell
fuck
me
yeah.
about that.
I mean, I'm always making artwork with this intention that this thing that I am doing, this is the most critical thing at this moment, and when people see this, forget about it. When
What's
people
forget what's I
to
gotta
change
understand
the
what
world.
will change the world. So your motive is to change the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're thinking that that's good. Okay.
So
So
I'm always thinking about that public there, that illusory public,
yeah,
and how this media really meets them at the critical moment.
yeah. But that's very interesting. Now, what do you think the motive of the cave artist was? Not what Herzog says or anthropologists, just your guess, your
What does
hunch.
Herzog say?
Well, just watch his documentary. He got it from the New Yorker magazine.
Okay.
So, I
Um,
mean, I can trash it, but it's also there's a whole bunch of anthropologists say blah blah blah. This is what the motive of the cave artist was. So I'm just saying, what's your hunch off the top of your head?
hello, it's me.
Todd. Are you a Todd fan?
No, but that song is just stuck in my head. I think I heard it in the last 3 weeks.
So you're saying identity?
Yeah.
I mean, what is you're
No, they're
saying,
just saying hi.
oh, they're just saying hi. Hello, it's me. You like I said what a couple of weeks ago. I says, "What's the motive of the cave artist?" The guy said, "To keep people in the cave." It's like, "Hey, come over to my cave." And they're like, "Hey, you got to stay here. Isn't this cool?"
There's some good pictures in this one. I'm
I
gonna
always
tell
say
you a story.
the motive of the cave artist is to invite people to your cave to have crackers, grapes, and wine.
I wish I had said that. I wish I had answered that way.
So, what's your I mean, I'm just gonna say are you a conceptual artist? Is that
Oh, I don't know.
what do you say if you say, "Oh, I'm an artist?" They go, "What medium are you in?" What do you say?
I work in multiple medias.
Multiple, okay. So McLuhan said everything we invent extend some humanness. So clothing extends our skin. Knife and fork extends our teeth. The shutter, in a camera or projector extends our eyelid. Philosophy extends consciousness, whatever. What does let's just say your tool is the writing utensil.
The
Like,
imagination.
okay, it extends imagination. Okay. Peter Greenaway said cinema is much too rich a medium to be left to storytellers. Our experimental artists, you like that?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, 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 it is like because basically
Although
films,
I do love a good story.
huh?
Go on. I do love a good story, but
Well, of
go on.
course you do. I mean, we all do, but I'm saying cinema basically is 130 years.
Yeah,
It's been hijacked by filming plays. It's basically narrative.
yeah,
And then there's some experimental filmmakers. I'm sure you're aware of them, like Tony Conrad's The Flicker is just black and white flickering for 15 minutes.
yeah.
So our experimental artists in film and moving image art telling stories a different way or doing something completely different.
Well, doesn't it depends on whether you see the human mind is ultimately trying to make a narrative out of everything, or if we're capable of just dwelling in the world of experience and non-narrativizing things. So it just really depends on what day it is. But mostly they're trying to just, you know, dwell in the world of a different kind of experiencing that's not narrative and not language
Is
necessarily language based.
Is storytelling more innate or more invented?
Both.
Yeah, because here's Hollis Frampton. Narrative is born among The animal necessities of the spirit because we're waiting to die.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, if you're living with the death drive, sure.
Yeah, but yeah, like I asked you earlier, can you forget to die? You said what? Probably.
I don't know. I'm working on that one.
No, it's interesting because you can't. Okay, so Michael Apted's filmmaker. He made a rock video documentary 40 years ago, right when MTV was breaking. I asked him, why do rock video editors feel so obliged to edit fast? Most people don't know, Abel Gance invented rapid montage in 1922, but it really flourished in the 80s with MTV. Marty Scorsese says, I cut my films faster because of MTV. So he said, because we can learn to take in information faster. Can humans literally learn to take in information faster, or are we just brainwashed to believe we can?
Oh, you asked a good question.
Well,
Um,
I usually say it's asked with a bias because I
I mean,
asked,
so many. I mean, isn't that the gamble of contemporary culture right
what's
there? Isn't
what's the
that it?
gam
Is there any other questions besides that?
well, what's the gamble mean of
Well, I
what's
mean, so much of the implementation of the extension of man into digitization and in computers is and media culture is that we as a human being could function more like a machine, and and that we need to speed up time in order to be more productive and to get more things done within a day, and so therefore we don't have a choice. We're kind of forced to live in this world of speed. So I think that's the gamble. I don't think I have a choice there, but
you
to
have no
what we're
choice, but yeah, that's like the guy who goes and lives in a cave and then he writes in Esquire magazine how he lives in a cave. I says, you went to the library to fucking email your article into Esquire. You're still living. You see, like if you hate or love Facebook, it doesn't matter. We live in a Facebook world. You can go, I don't do Facebook. I says, it doesn't matter if you do it or not. You live in it. But the question was, you handled that really well. I love your word gamble there, Robbie. But it's, can humans, even pre-digital electronic word, basically McLuhan says we have three words: spoken word, printed word, and electronic word. And so pre all the words, can humans learn to take in information faster?
Yeah, of course.
We can.
Yeah.
Can we literally multitask?
Am I supposed to think about the word literally here? Uh,
You're not supposed to think. You're supposed to feel. The whole interview is about guessing, not thinking.
um, yeah, we can.
Yeah. You know, my
Not
favorite
very
is,
well.
yeah, now there you coded it. Okay. That's like poetry with footnotes. So you mean like Bridget Bardot says, I don't think when I make love. I like, good luck. you know, can you literally pull back and shut your brain off when you're doing a sensual thing? You
No.
know. No, see? That's amazing. Can you try to?
Yeah.
But is
Oh
that
wait,
what
no, no. I'm sorry. You can. You totally can.
you can?
Yeah.
But have you ever do you meditate, or about meditation?
Yeah. Of course.
Did,
I
uh,
find the practice of meditating a pain in the ass, but I find that I could get caught in experience very easily.
I missed the part of that you find the what of a
I find the practice of meditation as it's conventionally
yeah,
taught very difficult, but I
right,
find being caught in experience very easy.
right. Like,
Hence, like why I prefer standing in this conversation
yeah,
versus sitting,
yeah,
because I could move around and
yeah,
enjoy myself as opposed
yeah.
to being caught in the chair.
No, that's really good. Yeah. Yeah. I've had one of participants in my 40 years discussing all this, he came back after a couple months and said, "Oh, I just read an article. Our chairs aren't good for us." And I says, "I see. We invent chairs, and they have services and disservices. So you sit for 3 hours with a group of people and talk. Most everybody's going to sit down because we think it's more comfortable and better for our bodies. That's because we've been brainwashed to believe that sitting's better. But
Yeah.
it's not necessarily. There can be aspects of it that are service and aspects that are disservice. But once we invent something, we just use them. And we don't understand how it changes us. We just go, "Oh, well," like you
Yeah.
said earlier about a car. I love your rap about car, but do you own a car?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, I'm not trying to point at you and say you shouldn't own a car, but you live in a car world.
Hmm.
So you can't, so has it changed you? Yeah. And then, what's the service of a car? It enables you to have a place where you can make love to your girlfriend when your parents won't let you do it in their house. But that's a service. What's a disservice? You can get killed in a car easily. But no one goes and say, "Well, I'm not going to buy a car because I could get killed in this." They don't do that.
I know I have a friend who does that, but she's a transportation journalist and she's an avowed walker.
Yeah. Well, she could be killed by a car even faster by in a car,
Yeah.
but I respect her and love her for it. I mean, yeah, because no one, you know, I've studied this for a while because I use the car a lot to discuss this. And the only people that there's only one place that there's been people will actually say there's a disservice to cars. It's in a motorcycle repair shop. There's a sign on the wall that says cars suck. What's more important, conviction or compromise?
Both.
Yeah. Okay, you've accomplished a lot in your life. I love your journal. Your talk on YouTube is highly recommended. That's really good. Well, how do you rate these three elements in your accomplishments? Luck, skill, and ambition. What played the biggest role, second and third?
Oh God. Ambition, luck, and what was the third one?
Skill.
Skill.
That's all right.
No,
T.S.
like that.
Eliot, huh?
Ambition, luck, skill.
Ambition, luck, skill. Yeah. T.S. Eliot said that poetry is outing your inner dialogue. What language is your inner dialogue in?
Uh, miasmatic.
What's that word mean?
Miasma.
What does that word mean?
A miasma is like a fog.
Oh, it's a fog. How do you spell it?
Miasma. Miasma. It's like a mix of it was like
Yeah.
a 18th, 17th, 16th century word like that's used to describe the body's ill humors in that whole world of alchemy. And
Yeah.
I invented this word in my sleep the other night, which was a miasme is someone who operates within a miasma. So that's on my mind.
Miasme, and you end it with an M-E.
Yeah.
What's it mean again?
Someone who operates within a miasma.
Operates within. That's good. That's sort of like, can you tell the dance from the dancer? Can you tell the miasme from the miasma?
Yeah.
Yeah. A couple of pioneer film outsiders. George Manupoli says his mantra is ignore yourself. Jonas Mekas says there is no self-expression. Cecil Taylor said, I'm just a vehicle and this stuff just comes through me. So again, it's a stupid question. Both, it's both, but it depends. But your hunch, is art making more self-expression or more a vehicle for whatever culture or technology is dominant?
Number two.
Can art making be egoless?
No.
Was Freud right?
Partially.
Is perception reality?
Yeah.
McLuhan probed Finnegan's Wake by James Joyce. He said, everybody has these powers to create these scenarios in the middle of the night, like you did there. Create new words, think up, and see things. But artists, not to be elitist, can also dream while they're awake. Have dreams played a role in your creative process besides the example you just gave?
Yes.
And can you recall a dream that you've had in your life?
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Oh God, I just had one the other night where I was at a ski town, and I was having a reunion of old friends, and I was driving a car, and I was in an accident in it. But then I realized that the car wasn't mine, and the car wasn't a conventional car, and in fact, I wasn't even in an accident.
Wow. So I talked about rewording or reinventing aphorisms. McLuhan actually did it to Browning's. Our reach should exceed our grasp, or what is heaven for? And McLuhan said, our reach should exceed our grasp, or what is a metaphor? How? Thanks for listening. How and why do you use metaphor in your art?
Metaphor is everything. I mean, literally, it's how we make meaning, and it's how poetry happens. Is when it's an innate tool of abstraction where language is set loose within the brain and in the body to become something other than what we think it is.
What's the function of poetry?
To set language loose so it can float and so we can make new language.
I'd love you to help me with this quote. I can never figure out what it means, but it's Leo Bersani's study of Mallarmé, the symbolist poet.
Uh-huh.
He said, the very crises which threatens the writing of poetry sustains poetic composition. You know what that means?
Yeah.
What?
That language and the puzzling around language and how it affects, just the puzzling around language and not understanding language is what keeps people being poets and playing with language.
Yeah.
The instability of language.
Why is it so difficult for humans to consider the possibility that life may be pointless?
Is it?
No, wait,
No,
Robbie.
is it?
Is your question, is life pointless, or is it difficult for humans to consider the possibility?
Is it difficult for humans to consider? I don't think it is.
Right. No, I asked this guy this question. It was some big hotshot LA writer, and there was 40 people in a coffee house, and he goes, all of us know that's not difficult. Lewis Carroll said, I believe as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. Have you believed in any impossible things lately?
Oh, yeah.
Tell me one.
I recently had problems with my vision, and I had all kinds of impossible beliefs about how to help me with it. So consequently, I believe that if I walked enough, then it would get rid of this gas bubble in my eye. Did a lot of walking during that period, but it didn't help.
Wow. I'd say keep walking, because Sun Ra, the great jazz shaman, said
There's never a problem with walking. That is why I kept at it no matter what. I was like,
That's good. Yeah, see?
Yeah.
But previous to that, you didn't know, or you didn't practice walking as much as you do now. Is that what you're saying?
At the time, no, I've always tried to walk, but then I tried to walk a lot.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, because Sun Ra, the jazz shaman, says, the impossible attracts me because everything possible has been done and the world didn't change. Robbie, tell me one major element of your art that stayed the same and one major element that's changed in the years you've been doing it?
Well, the form changes a lot, but I don't know. That's such a great question. Can you repeat it?
Yeah. One major element of your art, your creativeness that's stayed the same, and one major element that's changed.
The desire to play always, whether it's with other people or with myself or with ideas, and uh, the approaches to expression and the tactics or the
Yeah,
strategy. I guess the strategies they would
the
say.
strategies have changed, but the
Yeah,
desire stayed the same.
yeah.
Yeah. Moshe Feldenkrais works with healing and movement. He says it's literally possible to identify a weakness and incorporate it to become a strength rather than we're normally taught to overcome a weakness. Tell me a weakness you've turned into a strength.
My bad vision.
And how has it turned you? What's the strength?
I have in certain points incorporated um, kind of visual phenomenon that I've experienced to make interesting artwork, and then technically being able to see really close up makes me feel like I'm a confident drawer.
Nice. What's the difference between rights and responsibilities?
I love this question. Everything and nothing. I mean,
Yeah.
um, they're both innately connected to a community. You have responsibilities to a community, and the community grants you rights.
Yeah, here's a quote I recently wrote down about it. I won't tell you who it is, but I'd love to hear your response, and then I'll tell you. I believe that every right implies a responsibility, every opportunity an obligation, every possession a duty.
Yeah, agreed.
John D. Rockefeller Jr.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the difference between rebellion and revolution?
Uh, rebellion and revolution.
Yeah,
Rebellion is an act. Revolution is a transformation.
really good. So, watching your video on YouTube was highly enlightening. You talked about leisure revolution.
Mm.
I came up with a lot of questions from your video, and we just could dive into, or no, a couple questions. I have this theory that I've heard. I'm not saying it's true or it's just a thought that rich kids start the revolution because they have the time to read and figure out the working class is being screwed. So then they tell the working class who's busy working that they're being screwed. And so you can study all the great revolutionaries, and most of them came from, you know, entitled or privileged households. Any comment on that?
I think you're right on.
Yeah.
It's just like who's got, you know, I mean, even, and one can find themselves in a place of privilege in all the worst locations. I mean, we could say like Malcolm X was privileged to use his time well in prison. Um, or we could say that Karl Marx was privileged enough to have a somewhat wealthy wife, or a wife who could stand him,
Yeah.
so he could, spend his time writing this text. But there needs to be a moment of reflection on the condition. Um, Fortunately, unfortunately, that often is a privilege of wealth. But there's, privilege, as we've discussed. Yeah, well, no, we haven't discussed it, but privilege exists in many different kind of formats within our society. And what just one of the more interesting things about politics and political writing is how an individual comes into a space of consciousness and the privilege that allows them that time. Just the architect, the infrastructure of imagination that is provided there for those moments of reflection.
Yeah, it's great documentary, Berkeley in the '60s. It shows the
Uh-huh.
Black Panthers sitting there going, "Yeah, we heard Mao's Little Red Book was really good, so we went to Chinatown, bought copies for a nickel, and then we sold it to the hippies for $5. We eventually read it. It's a pretty good book." um, Utah Phillips, who you quote, boy, was I happy to see someone else quoting you
Yeah, go on, go on. Wait, where'd you find my Utah Phillips quote?
somewhere. I don't
Okay,
know.
go, go, go.
He says, "Anarchy is making rules for yourself and not others. Who's entitled to make the rules?"
Whoever damn wants to.
Ah! Well, that you advise me, Robbie, because I have
I mean,
struggled.
anyone can make rules. I mean, it's just a question of who's going to follow them.
Right. Well, that's true too. But what's the wording I should have? I set it up with the Utah Phillips quote. Then I could say who's entitled to make the rules, who should make the rules, or who makes the rules.
Who
But if you
should make
say
them?
the third one, it's just like, well, rich people make the rules.
Yeah.
That's an easy. But should I say who's entitled or who should make the rules?
Who well, entitled goes to do different places. Like it depends on who's doing the entitling.
Yeah.
Should is a question of right, who is right to make the rules, and that's more of a, yeah, who should make the rules, because that's more, it can be interpreted as like a space of dreaming, like, I think cats should make the rules, or young children should make the rules, or it should be like, yes, who should make the rules and what qualifies for someone to be a rule maker.
Yeah.
So could be also philosophical.
Yeah. John Basil Barnhill, I think you go into socialism too, somewhere in your. He said, "Where the people fear the government, you have tyranny. Where the government fears the people, you have liberty." 2005 V for Vendetta, the movie paraphrases it. People should not be afraid of their government. Governments should be afraid of their people. How do you personally handle false fears like the war on drugs or the war on poverty or the war on terrorism? Like the guy said, you can't have a war on drugs because drugs don't fight. You can't say no to drugs because drugs don't talk. So, you know what I'm talking about? These
Yeah.
false fears. How do you handle them?
With counter narratives. I mean, storytelling, or experiences that put people into places where they start to confront those false fears.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did this whole
But
project on the war on poverty that was about encountering the fears and anxieties about around that, and the myths that we contain within ourselves around that.
yeah, because would you say your art is political activist, agitprop-ish?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm happy for you. The Journal of Aesthetics and Protest, 10 years. You got, what is this? Lana Del Rio. It sounds like Lana Del Rey. Do you ever get it mixed up? You know about her?
Me? No.
No, you don't get it mixed up, but I wonder if people do because Lana Del Rey studied at Fordham, and I always think she had some. That's where major McLuhanites teach media ecology, so it's funny. But you had this thing about assholes.
Yeah.
What was that called?
The antagonist guide to the assholes of LA.
Okay, what's a service and disservice of name calling?
It's like casting spells. Uh,
That's a service.
yeah,
What's a disservice of name calling?
it hurts people's feelings.
That sounded a little rather facetious. Okay, so that's good. Casting spells. That's really good. Hurt feelings. Okay. Is name calling effective? Is that why you did it? Because you feel it's an effective means?
It is affective.
Ah,
Whether the affect has an effect, that is a political question, but it certainly is affective.
right. So you're like once the artist creates the art, there it's no longer theirs. The user can do whatever they want with it.
Yeah, and that's the function of those guides in particular.
The function of what?
Of the Antagonist Guide to the Assholes of LA.
Oh, those guides.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So Al from Flipside said, "Don't sell out, sneak in." Any comment?
probably an asshole.
But don't you think that's what the art world is? I mean, isn't it a bunch of corporate bullshit and
Yeah,
artists are trying to do something and it's like, yeah, kiss up to the art world.
yeah,
You think so?
completely.
Paul
I mean,
Schrader said,
but also just not because I mean, the art world is a collection of assholes who play in the field of culture. Culture is a business, but then like any other business, particularly LA's most intriguing business, culture could do magnificent things.
that is good. That you quoted a McLuhan title. One of his books is called Culture is Our Business. And that's the beauty of McLuhan is you don't have to read his 22 books, just read the title.
Exactly. That's the
Because I
best
love
thing
how
about it.
you got the title wrong. It's not the it's the Mechanical Bride.
Oh,
And that was good that you got it because it's like, why give the right title? See if anyone's paying attention. So what do you think, just off the top of your head? Couple questions. Patti Smith got full page ads in New York Times and Wall Street Journal last week selling luggage. Sell out or she can do whatever she wants?
there are two different Patti Smiths. There's the sellout Patti Smith, uh, who's the image of Patti Smith, and then there's the unbeating heart of the radical there. Yeah, I mean it's a little bit of sellout. No, it's a lot of sellout. It makes me sad to hear.
Right on, brother. You wouldn't believe I've surveyed like 15 people and all of them go, well, she might need the money.
Complete sellout. That really makes me sad to
Complete.
hear.
It's complete sellout. Yeah, I agree. And we don't want to make value judgments. She can do whatever she wants. Anyways, that was beautiful. So Stanley Kubrick pulled Clockwork Orange from UK screens for 30 years because the authorities said, "Hey, these kids, your film is affecting kids, and these hoodlums are going to go beat up winos and maybe your family." So he pulled the film from UK screens only, but not the screens across the world. Was it more a publicity stunt deep down inside in Stanley, or was he really literally thinking he had to protect that his film was causing kids to beat up winos?
Can I say I don't care?
You can say, of course, you can say, I don't care.
I don't care.
That's good. Now, how about Louis Buñuel? When he went to a screening of L'Age d'Or or Un Chien Andalou, he had pebbles, little stones in his pocket. Was he there more to help the riot throw at the screen or to protect himself when they said, there's the filmmaker, get him?
Number one.
To help start the riot?
Sure.
Yeah. Anger can be a productive emotion when fill in the blank.
Anger is an energy. When it's affectively oh, anger is such a great energy.
Is that
Uh
Johnny Rotten? No,
yeah.
is that Johnny Lydon?
it's a pill song.
Pill
Um,
song.
uh,
But I wait, I heard he's Trumpy.
yeah, but
Is
there's
he?
that's like,
No,
affect.
but
Affect isn't
do you know that for certain, or you heard that he's Trumpy?
Trumpy does not. I'm pretty certain. I know he's Trumpy. I don't know if he's a Trump supporter explicitly,
Okay.
but a
Yeah.
quick Google search would tell us that. But
Anger is an energy. That was beautiful. Sorry, go ahead.
no, I mean, affect is whether it's whether it's focused or not focused, it is a tool.
Yeah. Yeah, we should do a whole podcast on affect versus effect.
Yeah.
Because that's McLuhan's main thing is called causality. And
Hmm.
there's this thing I'd love to explore with you, but not right now. It's called effects precede causes. You ever
Hmm.
heard about that? It's like we experience TV by looking at um Seurat invent mosaic painting.
Hmm.
So he prepared us for the mosaic
Yeah.
with with pointillism. And
Hmm.
then came in electronic pointillism.
I love it.
Yeah, that's why Dolly made a cover on TV Guide,
Yeah.
and McLuhan loved it because he had a decurical landscape, and there were
Okay.
thumbs on the landscape, and in the thumbnail were TV screens. And he
Yeah.
said, "Television's tactile."
Oh,
So
that's a really cool thing.
yeah, so, Robbie, can satire be destructive?
Yes.
Jonathan yes?
Yeah.
Jonathan Swift compared satire to a mirror in which people could see every face but their own. But when I asked a major comedy writer here, I said, "Can satire be destructive?" He said, "That's the job of satire." So how do you respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a question of art. I think does not comedy comedy we could laugh at anything we want. The question is what do we want to spend our time laughing at? You
Yeah.
know, there should never be necessarily shame in expressing the wrong thing or laughing at the wrong thing. It's a question of what we want to spend our time laughing with and laughing at.
It's beautiful. What's the function of laughter?
It's a release.
Marshall loved to quote Steve Allen, "Behind every joke, there's a grievance." Let's just say behind joke, there's a grievance. Any comment?
No comment.
You create what you resist. This is a saying. Bob Goldthwait, comedian, morphed it into "you are what you hate." James Joyce said, "It's a curious thing how your mind is super saturated with the religion in which you say you disbelieve." And Buñuel nailed it. He said, "Thank God I'm an atheist." So, what's your thought on this? You create what you resist. Not you, Robbie, but one creates what one resists. Any comment?
Yeah, I mean, our language creates our. You asked at the beginning, do we perceive reality or something like that, and
Is
how
perception reality?
yeah, what we perceive in the world creates our reality, and that's just as much as we when we perceive what we hate, that becomes intrinsic to our reality. Is we
It,
see what we hate around us.
so that's like what you resist persist.
Yeah,
You would agree.
the, in some sense, yeah, but a lot
What's
of other things go on at the same time, so it's
yeah.
not necessarily totalizing.
Right. What's the most significant difference between women and men, physical aside?
I don't want to go there.
Good. What caused matriarchy?
What caused matriarchy?
I love, you know how many people say that? When I ask that question, they usually repeat what caused it. Yeah. What caused matriarchy?
Can I ask for a clarification?
Yeah. Like what? Well, What matriarchy is ruled by women, let's just
Okay.
say. I sort of agree. Well, what caused it?
I mean, if there is matriarchy, it's because they reproduce
Right.
society.
You're that's right. There's no right or wrong answers, but that one you got right. It's biology caused matriarchy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a trick question, sorry. How do you find No, no, I'm serious. It's not a trick question. I'm pursuing it deeply because I want to study the gaze thing too. That's another podcast I'd love to get you and some of your friends is they call the female gaze. I call it the Zoom gaze. You can tell when people are doing their emails during these interviews. The Zoom gaze, the male gaze. So this woman, they found it helped invent cinema, way back during Méliès. So she had the female gaze or the male gaze? Well, the male gaze might be because men were the dominant in photography and painting. So it's like, how do you form your aesthetic framing? Is it male or is it from paintings or photographs you've seen in the past? Like if I just asked you off the top of your head, how'd you form your framing aesthetic?
Mad
You know,
Magazine.
huh?
Mad Magazine.
A Mad Magazine, yeah. How do you find peace of mind?
In my body with my friends. And
Nice.
yeah.
If you were walking down the street today and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
Don't worry so much.
What's the difference between worry and concern?
Concern is concerning.
I think it's a fine line because my mom worried, and everybody when she died at her service, I went. There's a lot of people in this room who worried that Dolores worried too much, and it's like I think she was just concerned. But people think, well, you worry too much. Well, what's the difference? There's got to be a
Yeah.
difference.
It's where do you see the extreme? Is it
Yeah,
worry that's the extreme or concern that's the extreme? To me,
yeah.
worry can be concerning, but concern is a matter of
Yeah,
concern. We use the word concerning less often than worry, so it
yeah.
apparently is a degree of worry that's stepped up.
Well, it's back to your answer. I loved how you just answered right off the bat on the first 10 or 12 questions because I asked a major publisher, you probably know him, VVAL Research
Yeah,
Publications. Yeah. I said, do thoughts create emotions? He goes, no, emotions create emotions.
love it.
Pretty good for a guy who played with Blue Cheer. Should toilet paper come off the roll over or under?
Over,
Why?
because that way you can see it.
If a publisher was to release your autobiography, Robbie, off the top of your head, what would the title be?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know is a good title. They
Yeah.
want to scent. They want to scent the glue in the binding. What smell?
Sorry, what?
They want to scent the glue in the binding of your autobiography. What smell?
Bubble gum.
Nice. They want to have an ink color other than black on some of the pages. What color?
Uh, Purple,
I
fuchsia,
like.
somewhere in between the two.
That's my last name means purple. I like purple.
Mm.
If a statue was built in your honor, where would you want it displayed and what would it be made of?
Oh, monuments. Come on, pass.
Tell me something good you never had and you never want.
Shrimp?
You've never had shrimp?
No, not on purpose.
That's good. You never had it, you never wanted it, and it's good. That's good. If you were in a vat of vomit up to your neck and someone threw a bag of shit at your face, what would you do?
Hold on 1 second. I'd let it hit me because
Oh,
it's
that
in
is
a bag.
huh?
Otherwise, I'm putting my face into a thing of vomit. I'd
Right.
probably duck out of impulse, but
Yeah, it's good. These are 5 quick Alan Watts questions just off the top of your head. Who started it all?
whoever farted first.
That was a good answer. Are we going to make it?
Sure.
Where
What
do
does make it mean? Yes,
where,
yes, we're gonna make it.
where do we put it?
Uh, in a bubblegum wrapper.
That is good. Who's cleaning it up?
I'm just going on a theme here. Tops,
Is it serious?
deadly.
Nice. We just got a few more minutes. Robbie, this has been really fun. I appreciate it. What artist from any period would you want to do your portrait?
Oh, are you asking about the artist name or the period?
You could put in the context you want. You could say a genre, or you could say a artist name or a period. Yeah.
I know there's a bunch of Mad Magazine artists that I'd love to do it, but then there's a bunch of uh, woman cartoonists from the '90s that I'd love to do it too.
Oh, that's nice. If
And
you were a chair,
I'd probably want to work to find who the second category would be.
nice. Can you name a couple of those women artists? Oh, you mean like Linda Berry? Those kind?
There was this woman, Fawn Geller, I want to say. Um, then there was this woman who did this great comic called Art of War that I've always just like, whoa. And
Yeah.
then and then that there's a few others, yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. If you were a chair, who would you want to sit on you?
Oh, the guy who wrote oh gosh, that whole great book about how we sit down and don't sit down. Um, he was this Italian guy who uh, who theorized crowds and power. The guy who wrote Crowds and Power.
Crowds and Power author. Very
Yeah,
good. Does punishment work? I'm just going to set it up. It's like when a criminal gets caught, do they think, oh, I've done something morally, socially wrong? Or do they think my criminal skills weren't up to snuff that day?
depends on the criminal.
But I mean, does punishment work?
Oh, sometimes.
There's a,
Sorry, works to do what?
yeah, works to do what? Clarify. Well, it's just like, do do putting people in jail really help? Like
No,
we already know, it's like you put these white collar criminals in jail. It's just like country club jail. You put poor kids. I know a kid, he was in jail half his life. I says, was it all HBO, drugs, and cell phones? And he goes, yep. So does that work? And then you see these movies where these kids learn skills and they become lawyers or great artists in jail. Maybe they wouldn't have done that if they were out on the street. So, I mean, punishment in America is like an industry.
yeah,
It's the what do they call that? Prison industrial complex. So, like, what do we do? Is punishment work? It's just a basic philosophical question.
no,
It doesn't work.
no.
Yeah. There's a guy you brought up, and I never understood who he is and why he's important. I didn't write down the quote, but maybe you can tell me. Bataille, George.
Bataille.
What's his big deal? Did he have an influence on you, or explain to me what he's about?
I haven't read that much Bataille, but he talks a lot about he's a surrealist poet, and is comes out as philosophy, and I think I was ta- thinking about he wrote about him a little bit in the Antagonist Guide to the Assholes of LA, and talks about just Patti Smith's song The Transformation of Waste. I don't know if you know that lyric, but the transformation of waste is a preoccupation of man or human being or woman or something like that. That's Bataille basically. So he's a poet who's a surrealist poet whose work goes to philosophical dimensions.
That's beautiful, but he's post-symbolist. He's not really considered a symbolist?
I don't know the distinctions there.
Yeah. What does courage mean to you now?
Uh it means two things: living day to day as brave as possibly, and also living a full life, living life to what I in a bigger picture believe.
Wow. You think you got your brilliance, and I'm not just kissing up. I think you really got what I'm aspiring in this dialogue. Do you think you got it more from the way your parents raised you or on your own?
I think I got it from having a twin brother to dialogue with.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. That's heavy. Sheesh. We're almost done here. Joseph Boys said, you ever get into Boys?
Hmm.
Yeah, because he's like a political agitprop
Yeah.
kind of. Yeah. He said, make the secrets productive. And Lou Welsh, a beat poet, said, guard the secrets, but constantly reveal them. But it was Thornton Wilder in 1928. He said, art is confession. Art is the secret told. But art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time. You've laid your cards on the table for 90 minutes, Robbie. I'm really grateful. You've enlightened me. I'm not insinuating you haven't answered this. What's it really all about for you?
Loving.
That's pretty good. You know this guy, Eden Abez?
Yeah.
Eden Abe, or it's
Yeah.
Abe. He says, nature boy.
Yeah.
It's a Jewish cantor song. He just took a Jewish cantor song. He says the most important thing is to love and be loved. Yeah. But I like yours. Loving is a verb, right? No, is it a verb or an adjective or both?
I wasn't in the country when we learned that stuff.
But I mean, for you, when you said the word loving, do you
Yeah.
mean that what it's all about for you is loving as a verb or
Oh, it's an
loving as
action. Yeah.
it's an adjective?
Yeah. It's an action.
Action, yeah. What's the cultural shift you see developing today that's had an impact on you?
The speed at which media happens.
So that's had an impact on you, a good impact or a bad impact?
Bad and good. In
So
that it's changed the nature. I mean, at the current moment, it's confusing because of COVID, but it's changed the nature of communication so much that it has me operating in a world that's, I'm not particularly old, I'm not particularly young, but it's unfamiliar to me. And it's challenged me to spend time thinking about how it is that we came to live in this world of digitization and speed, and trying to, you know, kind of figure out how to hack that system in a hu- in a in a humanist way, not that I understand, and to understand how the cybernetic world that we live in um, came from a kind of humanism, and trying to understand how we might imagine an avant-garde position within, like, in the kernel of that world, and kind of make relationships there and understanding, and to try to make art reflecting on that very moment and that very history.
Yeah. It's beautiful, well put. And do you think humans are really worse off or it's faster than when we first appeared on Earth? I mean, isn't it really just the same? Is it really that different just because we've got, more inventions?
Yes, it is.
It is,
Yeah.
really.
I mean,
What
we're able to destroy and create at much greater speeds.
yeah. What question remains unresolved for you?
What's it all about?
Elfie. What's it all about? That's good. Okay, last question, Robbie. It's been fun. I really appreciate it. Really cool. What gives you the most optimism?
That the world exists, and it is a place of wonder and imagination. And when I step outside of the city and outside of my life, it's just all right there.
Really, I like that. Robbie, thank you so much. Namaste. It's been an amazing time with you. I hope we can continue on this discussion forever and ever.
Thank you so much, Jerry. That was really enjoyable.
Super cool, dude.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.